Hi everyone, it's Chrissie and welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if this is your first time watching. So we are back today with another kind of like family park playground kind of build, and we're actually going to be building in Chestnut Ridge, which is the world that came with the Sims 4 Horse Ranch. And it's a world that I feel like I don't ever build in enough because it's a really pretty world, and I actually had the opportunity to be part of building for the world, like building for the pack. So like some of the builds that come with the pack, if you buy it, are actually builds that I did. So it's one of my favorite packs purely for the fact that, you know, I got to be a part of it. But also because of that, I feel like I almost never build in this world because I feel bad bulldozing lots that the amazing like creators that I worked with, like Simproved and Dr. Ashley and Ninster, and you know, that they built. I feel bad bulldozing their lots, so I just don't. And even with my own lots, I feel bad bulldozing my own lots because I know how much work went into creating those lots. So I'm just like, you know what? I don't want to mess with stuff, so I'm just not gonna do it. But, you know, I'm trying to get over that because, you know, they don't mind if I bulldoze their lots. They bulldoze mine, so it's fine. And I know, obviously, all of you guys, if you end up building in a world, then, you know, you're going to end up bulldozing lots, obviously, because that is just what happens. Because we only have so many lots that you can build on, and sometimes you need to get rid of an EA build or a creator's build to make space for your own, which is what I did with this one. So with this build, I'm building on a 30 by 30 lot. I cannot for the life of me remember the neighborhood name off the top of my head. I literally just looked at it like not even 5 hours ago, and I already cannot remember what it was. But I will have the correct lot name and the neighborhood in the world and all of that stuff in the description, as I always do. But basically, originally this lot had a starter home on it that the amazing Ninny built, or Ninster. Her name like changes based on the platform, but basically it had a really amazing starter home on it that I absolutely love. I've played in it myself when I did gameplay, but I wanted this lot to be a little bit more, I want to say functional, but like for more than just a residential lot, if that makes sense. So I went through a couple of different lots when I was thinking about doing this park build, because I mentioned this in the first build that I did for this. I don't want to call it a series because it's not a series, and I feel like whenever I call something a series, then I just never end up doing it. So I'm not calling it a series. But this kind of overarching idea that I had of building a playground or kind of like family kid focused park type lot in basically all of the different worlds, or at least as many of them as I can get to. And all of that was inspired by those playground like pieces that we got with the Adventure Awaits pack. That was the whole like starting point for this idea of building some sort of like park or playground or something like that in like every world, because I feel like the worlds themselves, they never have enough like community space in them, if that makes sense. Like, I know all of the worlds have at least one park in them always, but they're not very useful parks in my opinion. There's not really a lot to do in those parks because they usually tend to be just base game stuff, unless there's some gameplay feature that comes with a new pack that works with the park. But I feel like they're always very restrictive. They're always very much like the same thing over and over again. So I kind of wanted to play with this idea of having more kid and like toddler and child focused areas, if that makes sense. So even though this park isn't as like playground-esque as the build that I did in Willow Creek, which was the first build that kind of like inspired this whole thing, even though it's not as like playground-esque as that build is. That build is but very clearly a playground. Like there's no other like, you know, purpose to it or anything like that. Even though that one did look like that, this build is a little bit more different. I decided to lean into a little bit more of the rustic, kind of like rustic modern vibe almost that this pack, that the horse ranch actually comes with. So we have this like undercover, I don't want to say pergola because it's not a pergola. It's almost like an open clubhouse type thing. So it is a building. It does count as being undercover and all of that stuff. Even though I didn't put a roof on it, I used kind of like debug items to make it look like it has a roof. Even though I did put a flat roof on it, obviously I put a ceiling on it. But then I used these like I guess they're kind of like pergola like kind of things from outside from the debug menu, and I sized them up. I made them look like they're part of the building, and like it's the ceiling. It's all, I suck at explaining it. It would be a lot easier to just show you when we get into the game, which I will do when we get into doing the tour. But basically I did that to make a little like undercover seating area. And I also wanted to have a kind of like toddler infant corner, because the main lot itself, there's obviously a lot of playground stuff for children and things like that. I also put in some archery ranges because I figured, why not? It's not necessarily an activity that you might think of when you think of children or a playground, but kids can do archery in this game, and I figured it fit with the whole like rustic vibe. And I didn't want this to be just another copy paste version of the playground that I did first, going into my whole like spiel about like parks being just copy pasted versions of each other. Usually I don't want these parks to be exact replicas of each other. I want some of them to have a couple of different things to do. Like this one has archery, and it has this games table that obviously your Sims can play cards on, or they can build puzzles on, or things like that. And we also have a little like toddler infant corner where I end up putting in we have a playmat, we have a bunch of toys, I put in a changing table as well. And then I have it all separated by this like low fence from I believe it's from the Toddler Stuff pack. And I use that fence, and because it makes it look like, you know, you can child proof the like playpen area. Basically it's kind of like a playpen. So, you know, you could lock your toddlers in there and they won't wander off. You know, I believe you can like child proof the locks in the game, like for the gates and stuff. So you could actually like lock your children, like toddlers or your infants or whatever, in this space. If your infants can like crawl around and stuff like that, you can lock them in there and they won't, you know, crawl all over the place. And you won't have to constantly keep an eye on them, which is really fun for gameplay. Like, it's really useful for gameplay to know that if you put a toddler somewhere, then you can keep them there. And you don't have to worry about them like autonomously wandering off of the lot or something like that, because that has happened to me and it's always very irritating when it happens. So yeah, there's everything that they could want to do. There's a toddler potty, there's seating, there's a bookcase for like toddler books, there's everything that they could want to do in there apart from like a crib. But they can nap on like your Sims' laps, or they can nap on the floor or in the playpen or whatever. But yeah, so that is our little like child infant corner playpen area. And what I'm currently doing is I'm putting blinds on this front of the building, because I wanted to make it look like if the weather is like really bad or it's like super rainy or whatever, then those can be lowered and it could be like a complete enclosed space. So I know where I live, a lot of restaurants like by the beach and stuff like that, they have these really big blind, it almost looks like a blind, but it's more like a tent type thing, where you have this big open air deck space that has a roof obviously, but then the sides of it are all open. But then if the weather is really bad, like if it's raining or it's like super windy or whatever, they have these like covers that fold down, and it basically turns an outside space into an indoor space. So that was kind of the idea that I had for those blinds. Obviously it does not work like that in the game. That is purely decorative and like my imagination, but I really do like the way it looks, and I really like the way this whole lot actually turned out. It is, like I said, it's a style that I haven't built in for like forever. I don't usually do these kind of like rustic, natural looking type things. I tend to like my parks and like outdoor builds to have like a very specific like set structure to them. Like I like having defined pathways and defined areas for things. So trying to make this a little bit more free flowing and like it blends into the surroundings, and you know, there's not a lot of like pre-planning stuff going on. Like obviously the playground, like the big playground, like jungle gym type thing would have been planned out, you know, they would have planned out where it was going on the lot. But for things like the picnic tables and things like that, I wanted to make it look a little bit more haphazard, almost like, you know, they can be moved around if needed. And yes, I did use the Journey to Batuu picnic tables. I also used the games table from that pack. So sue me, like I like those things. I try and avoid Journey to Batuu as much as I can when I do builds, because I know not a lot of people have that pack for various different reasons. And I obviously, if you don't have that pack, just replace the picnic tables. We have so many different picnic tables in the game. You won't be like, you won't struggle to find a different one. I simply use them because I haven't used them in ages, and I really felt like they fit the whole like rustic vibe. They are some of my favorite picnic tables that we have. So yeah, I use them. But if you don't have them, just swap them out. Same thing for the games table. We have a couple of different ones that you can swap it out for. But with all of that said, the speed build portion of this is basically done. I'm gonna do the like terrain paint off camera, but let's hop on over into the game and take a proper look at this build, and I'll show you around. Okay, so here we are with the finished build, and as I said, it is on a 30 by 30 lot. I did give it a couple of lot traits. I gave it the Child's Play and Sunny Aspect lot traits, just to give it a little bit of a boost, I guess you could say. But yeah, I believe the original lot was called Canter Cottage or something like that, but I will have the correct name in the description, as I always do. But yeah, this is our finished build. I absolutely love the way it turned out. I do feel like it does blend into the surroundings fairly well. It's always a little bit of a challenge with terrain paint to make it blend in, but I feel like it's not perfect, but it's good enough, and I don't feel like it's out of place, so I'm happy with that. But yeah, so as you come in, we have some seating, we have our little archery range over here. We also have obviously our like little picnic benches. We have a fire pit. We have a little corner over here that I kind of like what I did with these hay bales, and just using them as a little bit of a somewhat of a divider to separate the space out a little bit. Same with like with the archery range. I feel like this is also just practical. Like in real life, you wouldn't want someone to kind of like miss the target and then accidentally shoot someone that's walking behind. So, you know, I feel like that's kind of just a useful thing to have. Obviously, it doesn't happen in The Sims, but in real life, I feel like that would be a bit of a problem. So yeah, we have that. We have a little bit of more of a separation over here, just separating the kind of like sitting dining space almost from some of the playground, where we have a little like swing set. I also put in one of the toddler slides, and then of course we have our big like playground play equipment thing. What do you call these? Like, they just call them like playground pieces, so I guess I would just say a playground. But yeah, we have that, and then I also put a monkey bars over here in the back, just hidden away a little bit, just to have something else for kids to do. And then we do have a little picnic space set up with some picnic blankets. I actually ended up putting in one of these like play tents as well. And then over here we do have our bathroom. That is a requirement. I do have this set up as a playground, and it does fulfill all of like the requirements for a playground. But yeah, I actually found out that this wooden like bathroom that came with one of the events that we had a while ago, this thing. So this actually functions the same way that one of these like bigger like public bathrooms function. So these have obviously sinks and toilets already built in. It counts as a sink and a toilet if you place it down on a community lot. But this one also counts as a sink and a toilet. So I ended up using that one just because it is a little bit smaller. It's a little bit more compact, a little bit easier to hide away. And yeah, so we have a little corner for the bathroom. I also have a grill over here and some more hay bales and barrels and things like that. And then over here we have our little like undercover, I don't know what you would call this thing. But yeah, so we have our little like undercover space where we have our kind of like seating area. I actually also have, what am I doing? We have a games table over there. I have a cooler in here as well. And then we also have access to our little like kiddie corner basically. So this is where I have stuff for infants and toddlers, and there's just a bunch of toys and floor space and like this changing table, a toddler potty, a little play mat, like toy boxes, everything like that that you could need to keep toddlers and infants busy on this lot. So yeah, you can lock them in there, child-proof, baby-proof the gates, and then just leave them in there while your Sims enjoy the park. But yeah, so this thing that I actually mentioned that I built, so this is a lot, like this is a, what do you call it, like it's a room basically. It's a room, it has a ceiling, it counts as being undercover, all of that stuff. But then I actually used one of these things from the debug menu from Horse Ranch, and I placed it over top of the room to make it look like, you know, it's the roof of the place. And I did that because this actually makes it look like there's a little bit of depth to the exterior. Like it makes it look like there's a little bit of like, I don't know what you would call this, like beam work or whatever, that makes it just look a little bit more interesting, a little bit more like personal and fun to look at rather than just a big plain rectangle. And I also like the way that it works with these big glass windows and everything like that. And it also if I go into tab mode and go down a little bit, you can see that it has a very nice effect on the ceiling as well. So it does kind of like blend, like merge into the top of the room. So it of course, you know, replaces the ceiling as well, and it looks really nice, and I really like the way it turned out. And of course this whole thing is play tested. I actually have my Sims out here in the front at the moment where they have been play testing it, so everything does work. So yeah, just a little bit of a heads up, but it is up on the gallery if you guys want to go ahead and download it. It's just called, I believe, like Chestnut Family Park or something like that. But yeah, that is it for this build, you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do have any other suggestions for the next world that you would like to see me build, like a family park or playground or something like that in, then definitely go ahead and let me know. Like I said, in the first build that I did for this kind of like idea that I had was in Willow Creek, and someone then actually suggested to go to Chestnut Ridge, which we have now done. So if you guys have any other suggestions or anything like that, then feel free to let me know. I do write them all down and like keep track of them for when it comes time to do the builds. So yeah, definitely let me know. If there are any other build suggestions that you have that you would like to see me do, then also always leave them in the comments. I love hearing from you guys, and I do have a running list of the ideas that you have given me that, you know, you might want to see or that you had or something like that, and I do pull from that list whenever I'm not sure about what to build or just looking for inspiration or whatever. But I hope you enjoyed this. Like I said, if you want to download it, it is up on the gallery. Tray files will be up for channel members, and then in 3 weeks they will be going up for everyone over on my Tumblr, on my Builds Tumblr, which is linked in the description. My gallery ID is also in the description as always for you guys. And just as a little bit of a heads up with channel memberships, I haven't talked about them in a while, But I do have channel memberships set up on the channel, and it is a really nice way of supporting the channel if you have the extra money to do so. You get early access to things like videos, and you can like have first say on like if I run polls or things like that, or if I'm looking for ideas or whatever. You also get first say on that. You also get early access to my save file and everything like that as well. But yeah, there's a bunch of different perks and things like that that comes from channel memberships. If you want to know more about that, then follow the link in the description or click on the little join button next to the subscribe button, and that will also tell you a little bit more about, you know, the whole process. And there's also various different tiers and things like that. So yeah, if you do have the extra money and it's something that you would like to do, then feel free to do so. Obviously no pressure, but it is a great way to support the channel if that is something that you feel like you want to do. But I hope you enjoyed this build. Like I said, I hope you're all having a great day and a great week, and I will talk to you all in my very next video. Bye everyone.